Coming up on Lawmakers, the House passes the 06 budget and both chambers agree on changes to Georgia's 05 spending plan. Two parts of the governor's ethics reform effort pass the House, and a bill that impacts abortion access passes the Senate. Those stories and more are next.
From Atlanta, this is Lawmakers for Friday, March 4th.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Wandy Lawson.
And I'm David Zelsky, filling in for Gerald Bryant.
Also on tonight's broadcast, the Senate passes a bill that would create a pro-life license plate.
And a House committee approves a measure that would protect prayer at private school sporting events. But our top story tonight, agreement on the 05 budget. The House and Senate Appropriation chairs presented the supplemental 05 budget to their respective houses, where House Bill 84 passed both by an overwhelming majority. Senate conferee Tommy Williams commented on the committee agreement, which he believes is a quality budget.
It's an austere, bare-bones budget, but we did fully fund education, and we fully funded Medicaid. Got a few projects in there in Regents and DTAE. But all in all, no local projects to speak of, no pork in the budget, and hopefully at the end of the year we'll have enough revenue come in to fill up some of our reserves.
The House also agreed to changes made by the conferees. House Appropriations Chair Ben Harbin said the House had scored several victories, maintaining discretional funding for child advocacy centers and a compromise on funding for historic preservation. But the Senate prevailed in the battle of the bonds, financing in cash construction for the Department of Technical and Adult Education and eliminating bond projects for local airports. Harbin said the House defeated a proposal to raise to $200 per month the premiums for the Katie Beckett waiver program for families with children with disabilities. But some of the House members still question why the state schools aren't being fully funded.
Well, I think we've restored, what we could. You've got the midterm adjustment in here, the 105, but I think the figure is still 300. It's still $300 million that we're looking at. And those efforts, as this economy continues to improve, that is something I think you'll see us try to address, because we do. But I think we're fully funding the midterm adjustment.
Yes, sir, but we always do that. The mid-year adjustment is always a part of the budget, and so I just hope that as we continue, we'll try to restore more of the QB funding formula cut, and I would appreciate you looking at that.
I think we're making adjustments and doing some of the right things in education, and I think you'll see some of those in 06 and as we continue to improve.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The amended 2005 budget also includes funding for materials required by the Woman's Right to Know Abortion Act and incentives to encourage Medicaid patients to choose over-the-counter and generic medications over the more costly alternatives. The Georgia Department of Revenue says collections in February were down more than 20% compared to last year. Net revenue collection for the month was $706 million compared to $921 million for February of 2004. For the entire year to date, however, revenue collections are up 8.1% over last year.
Legislation that changes abortion procedures passed the Senate this morning. House Bill 197 requires a 24-hour waiting period before a woman can have an abortion. During that time, a woman will receive optional reading material to educate them about their decision. The bill also requires a minor to have parental or legal guardian consent before the physician operates.
Both sides, the pro-life and the pro-choice, have essentially come together, and I know that's hard to comprehend, that's hard to believe. No, they do not agree on the issue, but they do agree that this bill has been worked on.
The Senate voted 49-10 to engross House Bill 197, meaning it could not be changed on the floor. That vote upset Senator Valencia C., whose amendment to exempt rape and incest cases from the waiting period was not given the chance to be decided on the floor. She questions Senator Unterman about that issue.
If we're going to engross it, cut off the debate on the issue, help me understand, as a female, why I should be, true enough, we've made some changes from last term to this term.
Yeah.
But rape, let's stay there for a minute. If you would speak to that, I would appreciate it.
Sure. And we are debating this, and I don't think the debate has been cut off because I knew this was going to come up. And I do feel like rape, even in the incidents of rape, they're still going to be accessible and be able to have an abortion. Like we said, abortion is legal. And I feel like anytime you have rape or incest, obviously there's psychological huge psychological problems. If anyone ever needs counseling and ever needs more help and ever needs more help in that decision-making process, I believe it would be a young girl or a woman who has been through that traumatic experience.
House Bill 197 passed by a vote of 41 to 10 and now awaits Governor Perdue's signature.
Just after the passage of House Bill 197, the Senate passed another abortion-related bill. Senate Bill 69 would give Georgians the option of having a Choose Life logo on their license plates. The bill's sponsor, Senator Jeff Mullis, shared his reasons for sponsoring the legislation.
The sanctity of life is very important to me. I believe in it from conception or fertilization to natural death. And this tag honors that life. And I think it's important that we show or give the people an opportunity to show that they have the same respect for life. And even if you're pro-choice, which I can't understand, I can't actually understand it, I think you should also be for choosing life.
An amendment was offered to give people the option for a pro-choice license plate. Senate Minority Whip David Edelman said not allowing both options would deny Georgians of their First Amendment rights.
You're not serving your purpose. You're not, for the pro-life members of this body, you're not serving the pro-life community very well by supporting a bill that will be ultimately, I believe, struck down by the courts as violating the First Amendment. There's no good reason for you all to shut out the pro-choice group or the pro-choice individuals who want to have sort of non-discriminatory access to the license plate. We don't win the debate by just shutting down people's speech. You win the debate by carrying the day by the power of your ideas.
Senate Bill 69 passed by a vote of 42 to 10 without the pro-choice amendment and now goes to the House.
Two of Governor Sonny Perdue's ethics bills passed out of the House today. Supporters of the legislation say it would be the strongest ethics legislation ever to pass in the state. Lawmakers Chris Knight joins us with more on the passage of House Bills 48 and 665. Chris.
Well, David, House Bill 48 is the governor's main ethics bill. Provisions in the bill include increasing fines for ethics violations from $1,000 up to $10,000. While House Bill 48 passed by a vote of 163 to 3, some legislators say the bill is watered down, questioning why the sections dealing with conflict of interest as well as putting a cap on gifts was struck from the bill.
Is this bill representative of everything that Governor Perdue wants in this ethics package? The answer is no. Is it better than where we are now with regard to where we are ethically within our state government? Absolutely. It is absolutely better than where we are now. But the larger question really is this: are we further along in restoring the public trust as a result of this bill and of reinforcing the public trust as a result of this bill than we are right now? The answer, I think unequivocally, is yes.
This thing has gone from a choir robe down to a G-string. That's about all it covers now. Now, in the Richardson, Burkhalter, Keene, Fleming version of this bill, what is covered does need to be covered. It just doesn't cover much.
And House Bill 665, which aims to protect whistleblowers who expose those who violate the law, also passed by a vote of 151 to 7. The third of the governor's ethics bills, House Bill 664, was also discussed today. It deals with legislators' influence on decisions made by the Department of Corrections and the Department of Pardons and Paroles. There was no vote on that bill. Reporting for Lawmakers, I'm Chris Knight.
Chris, before you go, I understand there was no vote today on House Bill 664.
That's right, David. Several representatives had questions regarding the intent of the bill, so the House decided to hold the decision until next legislative day.
Okay, thanks, Chris.
Well, minutes after the ethics bills passed, House Speaker Glenn Richardson was asked by reporters whether he thought the ethics legislation had been diluted and if the House had ultimately let the governor down.
We didn't let anybody down. We addressed and voted on the most extensive set of ethics rules that's ever been voted on. The last time that I can recall ethics being addressed was when Democrats wanted to raise the campaign finance limits for Roy Barnes to $5,000. I let him speak for himself, but I let him know what I thought we were going to do and what we could do. I don't think he's, the happiest person in the world, but he understands the legislative process.
Speaker Richardson was also asked about funding for special projects included in the 2006 budget. He said the funding is fair, even though most of the $3 million goes to the districts of Republicans and members of the rural Democratic caucus.
Oh, there's no doubt about that this is a team sport, and you can't attack the team and then want to get the benefits of being on the team. I mean, you can't attack continuously and then come ask for something. You can't criticize it and then come around and ask for something. I think that everybody understands that. But by the same token, I think you got to look at the project. Most of those people that are the most critical of things don't ask for projects.
The 2006 or big budget cleared its first hurdle today with passage by the House. As with the amended budget, some legislators wondered why the quality basic education formula isn't being fully funded in this budget.
All of those projects are very important in those respective districts, but isn't it true that we are not fully funding the QBE formula? And I'm real concerned about class size reduction across the state. And isn't it true that if we had used some of that money, perhaps we could alleviate some of the oversized classrooms around our state?
Well, and I appreciate your concern. This was a little over $3 million for these. These are projects requested. Some are going into education, some are going into public safety. And I think they're very well reviewed and very well spent, very well spent projects. I'll get this out right in a minute. That I think that benefit the state as a whole. We do understand and appreciate. My wife is a public school teacher, so I understand the concern in public education. My wife, when she first started teaching in the late 80s, had over 30 children in her class. Today she's still teaching third grade and has 19. So we have done a good job of reducing the class sizes.
Funds were restored to the budget to ensure that children who depend on the Peach Care for Kids program won't be removed from the insurance rolls. But Representative Nan Orrock said plans to move to a managed care system are treacherous.
Last year, the department recommended those policy changes on Peach Care, and they didn't come with a dollar figure. And we find that tens of thousands of children were booted off of health care by that policy, and they were, in fact, experiencing savings, if you will, on the backs of children being peremptorily thrown off the program. That same department now wants to send the Medicaid population, women and children, into...
Is there a question?
There is. This
Please, very
number
soon.
66, Mr. Speaker. And this language in 66, how much strength is there behind that? They're again not coming to the legislature with a dollar figure on either the cost or the savings of the conversion to an HMO, correct?
The board has that authority, and that's in play now. But what we're asking for is to be notified of what those projected savings are, because, as you pointed out, we weren't notified before, and we're asking for that. Now, this is not a statute, it's not law, but we're asking for it in the budget, and I hope that they will, for their sake and for our sake, they will come to us and let us know what those savings are going to be, because we want to work with them. We want this Medicaid population. We don't want to see them hurt. We do understand we've got to find some savings because of the increased cost we're having every year. It's eating up our new revenue. But we want to know what savings this brings about, and as much as it can do, if we all support it, I think that sends a pretty significant message there.
The House agreed to the 2006 spending plan by a vote of 154 to 14. House Bill 85 now moves to the Senate.
The House Governmental Affairs Committee passed two bills today, one of which would affect prayer at private schools. Lawmakers Angela Vondrasek joins us from the Capitol with more. Angela.
Thanks, David. House Bill 678 would allow prayer at sporting events hosted by private schools, which means visiting public schools would be allowed to participate. Sponsor of the bill, Representative John Lunsford, explains.
We think it's pretty simple. If they own the property, it's a private school, be it a Jewish school, a Christian school, a Baptist school, that the actual school has some ownership rights, and that prayer should be allowed. And what we're trying to do is clarify Georgia law.
The government may not coerce someone into prayer, so this would be public school students going to a public school event and being forced to sit and listen to a prayer from the private school.
House Bill 597 was also discussed. This bill would make several changes to the state's voting process, including requiring a photo ID at registration for first-time voters. Representative Sue Burmeister is the author of the bill.
It allows greater access for voting, but it also puts in stringent ID requirements to keep away voter fraud. We've passed various pieces of legislation, both on the state level and federal level over recent years, for the purpose of enabling more citizens to vote. And this bill today was going to take away some of that. It's not reasonable to think that every 80-year-old person in this state is going to have a passport or even a driver's license.
Both bills passed out of the House Governmental Affairs Committee and now await action in the House Rules Committee. Reporting for Lawmakers, I'm Angela Vondrasek.
Thanks, Angela.
Well, the Senate passed legislation today that would allow any blood relative to assist in the bail process for delinquent children. Senate Bill 136's sponsor, Preston Smith, explains why he believes this bill is necessary.
Currently, the system allows for only an application of a parent or guardian. In our adult system, other adults can make application on behalf of the person who is in custody. This bill will change the law so that any adult blood relative or step-parent may post bail along with the parent or the legal guardian of the child, provided, however, that in the case involving a child, once bail is posted, that child is immediately transmitted to the legal guardian or parent of the child. And apparently there are some situations that have arisen with respect to children in custody who are eligible for bail, but whose parents either cannot afford it or who cannot come and make the application, and an adult blood relative is able and willing to do that and return that child to the custody of the parent or guardian.
Senate Bill 136 passed unanimously and now heads to the House.
A bill allowing local governments to access national criminal background checks passed the Senate today. Senator Doug Stoner explains why he believes Senate Bill 6 can help keep communities safe.
The reason I bring this bill is an example in my home community in Smyrna, and this is an example that also is around the rest of the state, is that if you are willing to volunteer to coach for Little League or any other type of youth sport, most cities and municipalities require you to do a criminal background check. But currently under the state law, all that you're going to get is a state background check. And so, God forbid, you were a child molester from another state who had served time and came to this state, then there would be no record of that. And that's an issue, in fact, a lot of our cities were not even aware of until 2 years ago, that all they were getting was a state background check.
Senate Bill 6 passed by a vote of 49-0 and now heads to the House.
Well, for a look back at this week's action in the General Assembly, we turn to Tom Crawford, national editor of CapitolImpact.com. We started by discussing the budget.
Well, they have finally finished their work on the revised budget for this year. That had been going on for a couple of weeks, but both sides have been able to work out their differences. The House voted out the budget for next year, fiscal year 2006, today. It does some fairly radical things in the Department of Community Health to try to hold down the cost of Medicaid and other things like that. I'm sure the Senate will object to that, and they'll spend a couple of weeks trying to work out their differences on that one as well.
Well, we'll see how that one waters down. But, you know, we have seen what seems to be kind of a very partisan week, if not just from my vantage point, but I think from others as well. We were looking at abortion this week and making some progress in terms of those who wanted the Women's Right to Know bill to make its way through. It's on its way to the governor's office. Where do things stand as far as you're concerned on that?
The Senate adopted the House's version of the abortion bill Friday morning, and you're right, it includes a 24-hour waiting period. It requires doctors to counsel their patients on the medical consequences of abortion. It is on its way to Governor Perdue now. He's expected to sign it. He's made it very clear he opposes abortions. That has brought up a lot of heated debate between Democrats and Republicans, and even between white and black legislators as well. But it looks like it is going to become the law.
And of course, in the Senate today, they also added to that, I guess, the pro-life license plate that they wanted to put on that as well. Well, if we can switch gears for a moment, another partisan issue that has come up, ethics, of course, making the governor's ethics proposal not making quite the speedy way through the General Assembly that perhaps we forecasted at the beginning. What's the status there?
That bill came up in the House today. Several important provisions that Governor Perdue had wanted to include in the bill were taken out in committee by his own Republican allies. It finally did come up for a vote on the full House floor rather late in the session, but it passed. The House Republican leadership did not allow any amendments to be added to the bill on the floor, and that made the Democrats a little bit upset because they don't like to see debate shut down that way. But it's at least part of what the governor proposed, and it's now on its way to the Senate. We'll see if the Senate makes any changes over there.
We've seen folks coming down, I guess, on both sides of the House Bill 218, the secrecy and how far the government should be allowed to go in terms of making some of these deals with businesses that they're trying to attract to Georgia. And this week, of course, we saw that Senator Johnson was trying to make some leeway with the press in that regard. Where does House Bill 218, where is it going to go? It's over on the Senate side now, but does it have a chance of making it through?
It still has a chance. Eric Johnson, the President Pro Tem, did try to work out an agreement between the media or the newspaper people and the Department of Economic Development. Didn't go very far. He sort of left the impression that they will try to bring it out for a vote sometime during the next couple of weeks of the session, so we probably haven't seen the last of that.
Okay, I'm sure that we have not. Thank you very much, Tom Crawford of CapitolImpact.com. We love having you here on Lawmakers.
Great to be here.
The final bill that passed the Senate today was sponsored by freshman Senator Steen Miles. Senate Bill 130, which would remove towing signs from the parking lots of places of worship, happened to be the first bill that Senator Miles has introduced in the will. Therefore, a few veteran legislators decided to make her Q&A time a little tougher than usual.
The greatest complaint about these signs is that they are not very welcoming. And I want you, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, to please look at this great, big old, ugly sign. Is that what you want to see when you enter the parking lot of your place of worship?
Is this some form of retribution for a bad towing experience by the senator from the 43rd?
No, sir, it is not.
Will the gentlelady further yield?
Yes, sir.
Is this some attempt to remove or change the tax status of the many wonderful churches you have in the 43rd?
Absolutely not, sir. It has nothing to do with any tax status. It only has to do with being welcoming to folks like you who I know will be at church on Sunday and don't want to run into these horrible signs.
The commitment has been fulfilled at this point to have your bill before the Senate. Is that not true?
Absolutely, and we are very grateful to you and the Rules Committee, sir.
And is it also not true this is your first time in the well this year?
It is, sir.
And that the senator from the 9th so far is supporting your bill and hasn't moved to recommit it, and maybe this would be a good time to maybe leave the well?
Thank you for that expert counsel, and the senator from the 43rd does indeed yield the well.
Senate Bill 130 did pass unanimously, and Senator Miles was congratulated by her fellow senators for the way she handled the situation.
We have a correction to tell you about from last night's show. We reported that House Bill 285, a bill that would set a 10-day window in which local school systems could start their school year, received a due pass recommendation from the House Education Subcommittee. House Bill 285, in fact, did not pass out of subcommittee. The final vote on that bill was 10-3. House Bill 285 is now dead for the session.
Yesterday, the Senate passed a resolution that sets up a juvenile law commission to review Georgia's juvenile justice system. Senate Resolution 161, known as Amy's Law, was prompted last year after a 12-year-old boy was accused of murdering a 9-year-old Amy Yates. Under current law, if convicted, the accused 12-year-old would serve no more than 4 years in the juvenile justice system. Senator Bill Hamrick sponsors the resolution.
In Georgia, when a 12-year-old kills an 8-year-old, if that is the case, we really don't have laws to deal with that because we deal with the 13 and above in our criminal statute, but in the juvenile code, there's really nothing that addresses that situation. And so we started looking at it and trying to find out how to address it, and in the process, we discovered broader problems in the juvenile code, some inconsistencies, and so we set up a commission to rewrite the juvenile code, or to make some recommendations to rewrite the code.
The Senate voted unanimously to approve the proposal, and the resolution now heads to the House for approval.
Well, information about donations to state colleges and universities could remain anonymous if legislation adopted in the House yesterday makes it through the Senate. Representative Bill Hembry assured his colleagues that House Bill 340 is not an attempt to create secrecy in government.
Some say this law will open the door to other purchasing activities between the donor and the university. But we already have existing procurement laws on the books to protect against this. Plus, we have a state auditor, university auditors, regents auditors, an inspector general, and an attorney general. This bill does not change the open meetings and records requirements regarding personnel, salaries, operating expenses, or other purchases. This bill simply protects the private, personal, financial information of donors who in goodwill want to help an institution of higher learning.
Despite opposition from those who said the bill infringes on open records laws, House Bill 340 passed by a vote of 129 to 30 and moves to the Senate.
Representative Tyrone Brooks today called on the House to support resolutions urging congressional support for the renewal of the federal Voting and Civil Rights Acts. Brooks encouraged both political parties to remember the 40th anniversary of Bloody Sunday, the day when civil rights marchers were attacked by police as they tried to cross the Edmund Pettus Bridge near Selma, Alabama.
I want to say this, Mr. Speaker, that all that we talk about that occurred in 1964 and 65 as a result of Democrats and Republicans in the United States Congress, Senator Everett Dirksen, the majority leader of the Senate from Illinois, the leader from Minnesota of the Democrats, Senator Hubert Humphrey, teamed together to make it possible for the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act to move through Congress to President Lyndon B. Johnson's desk. I think that if Democrats and Republicans in the United States Congress could demonstrate bipartisanship, then Democrats and Republicans in the Georgia General Assembly can demonstrate that same bipartisanship by joining with us next year. Next year, as we go back to the civil rights battleground. Next year, I'll be bringing to you information, inviting all of you Democrats and Republicans to team up with us and go back to Selma, Montgomery, to Marion, to Whitehall, and join with us next year.
Representative Brooks will join other civil rights activists at Bloody Sunday commemorations this weekend.
Well, lawmakers will not be seen Monday, March 7th through Wednesday, March 9th, because the Georgia General Assembly will be in recess. Lawmakers will return with all the latest from under the Gold Dome Thursday, March 10th at 7 p.m. And just a reminder for those of you with access to the Internet, you can watch Lawmakers online. Lawmakers is streamed and then archived on our site every night that we're on the air. Now, stay tuned for more great programming here on Georgia Public Broadcasting.
And that's our program for this, the 28th legislative day of the Georgia General Assembly. I'm David Zelsky.
And I'm Wendy Lawson. For all of us here at Lawmakers, good night. We'll see you next Thursday.
This has been a production of Georgia Public Broadcasting.